Hello my friends, it's King Willie here. It is 4:25 on Sunday afternoon. I'm tidying up because tomorrow an electrician is coming to do something to the electricity box to ground it. So this is quite interesting. So I can switch this gas pipe. So the electricity is then the electricity is earthed. That has something to do with the gas. So I can get rid of this gas pipe. So I can put a wood burner back in this hole sometime next week. So I'm going to have to dismantle my desk and put that away. Anyway, check this out. It's a little story here I read in The Sun the other day. Ruined by sex porky. TV girl's £230,000 bill. This is quite an interesting little story. A TV actress was facing a £230,000 court bill. It's about $400,000 last night for falsely accusing her neighbour of having sex with a pig. Anton Barkhusin, 73, was arrested after Sharon Hamilton claimed she saw him with one of her porkers he lured into his clutches with donuts. So what she's saying is that this old fellow lured this pig with donuts so this old guy could have his wicked way with a pig. 8 officers scoured his home and he was subjected to intimate examinations and sample tests. I have shudders of horror to think of what that means, you know. So the pigs this is a good one. The pigs have been beastly to the guy that was supposedly banging a pig. The married former parish councillor was bailed and endured 3 months of ridicule in his close-knit Cornish village of Tregolls. Tregolls, which of course sounds a lot like trolls. But 54-year-old Hamilton's story was ruled to be entirely false. That's false. That's her there. When he sued her at London's High Court for false imprisonment, harassment and slander. He was awarded 32,000 something odd damages. Hamilton, who had bit parts in ITV's Doc Martin, also faces an estimated legal costs of £200,000. It should be the other way around. For a start, the legal costs should be 32 grand, and the damages to this guy's reputation should be 200,000. But Mr. Justice Warby heard the pair had clashed for 8 years over fenced-off land on a common where she kept pigs. After his win, Mr. Barkhusin said, "She resorted to a war of terror against myself and my family." Hamilton refused to comment. I mean, we've gone through all of this business now with the American election, and we've had WikiLeaks have released all sorts of details about the Clinton campaign, Donald Trump 70, and what with the modern age being more than what it is, and him being a outspoken guy. There's lots of footage and things that he said from 20, 30 years ago that are taken out of context, can be seen utterly inappropriate. Certainly Hillary's got plenty of mud that can be thrown at her. And slander is, you know, a very, very odd thing. I'm sure you've heard that phrase, mud sticks. Got some more fairy lights the other day while I'm telling this story. It comes from when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, or Daniel Day-Lewis was assassinated at the theatre. And the guy that shot him, John Wilkes Booth, you know, Sic Semper Tyrannis, shot him, you know, the war will never end, or the war has only just begun. Well, anyway, the boarding house where John Wilkes Booth was then raided by the federales, the police, the Secret Service at the time. And, of course, everybody there was assumed, more because it was after the war and Lincoln was such a beloved person, they were assumed to be kind of, well, complicit or guilty, or innocent, guilty basically. It turns out that one of the guys there was a guy called Mudd. He was a professor, I think, of mathematics. I could be wrong about that, but his name was Mudd. And he was accused of being an accomplice with John Wilkes Booth, of killing the president, I shall say. And it turns out that that he was completely innocent. And eventually they let him go because he was an innocent guy. But by that time, the saying "mud sticks" it was too late. The papers had utterly trashed his reputation, you know, and he was a ruined man for the rest of his life. But he was completely innocent. He was utterly innocent and proved innocent. And I mean, I remember reading once in a kung fu magazine, Chinese immigrants talking about how you can say things in our country like slander that you can't get away with it in China. I'm not saying that our system is better than theirs or vice versa. I thought at the time, well, that's a bit rich. You come to Great Britain and you're comparing the British justice system to the Chinese system of justice, and you're comparing it unfavourably. And I didn't like it at the time. But with hindsight, they've kind of got a point. I mean, I believe in the First Amendment and the right to free speech, but it's so easy to ruin people's reputations by throwing mud at them, you know, hence the phrase "mud sticks." But I mean, that poor guy there with the pigs, accused of making love to a pig, and of course it happened in our election in this country. And it has a great relevance to what's just been. David Cameron was elected Prime Minister, and during the election to elect him, the general election, it comes out of the woodwork that Peppa Pig, who is a children's cartoon character, has come out in favour of David Cameron. You know, and this is quite unusual. Beloved children's TV programmes do not usually come out in favour of any one particular party, let alone the Tory party, who are kind of considered the nasty party in my country. And it caused quite a kerfuffle at the time, you know. And it just... like a couple of years later, there were the rumours starting, because David Cameron, of course, is member of the aristocracy in this country, that he was, during an initiation rite into a secret society, he had to make love to a pig, or a pig's head. That's what the story goes. So the story says that to become initiated into this secret society, he had to, you know, buff to a dead pig's head. But was that simply the left inventing a colourful story to balance out the Peppa Pig voting for him? Was it that, or did he genuinely make love to a pig's head? Now, the Buddhism Society are known for the kind of antics that, you know, the aristocracy used to get up to 200 years ago. They go to a restaurant, they have the best meal, the best wine that they can afford, and then they trash the place after and insult the guests, and then they pay for the bill after because they can afford it. You know, the worst excesses of the aristocracy. So that's what they're famous for, and David Cameron was a member of them. And of course, it's ripe then, when that's the case, for stories to be made up with them. And I mean, if you're a member of a secret society, that's nobody's business but your own. But if you're in public life, there's room for all kind of speculation to be made. And it's an interesting thing that slander... I guess it's always been the same. I mean, if you read about the Romans and the ancient Greeks, slander was part of their life, and they were accusing people of child abuse thousands of years ago to ruin their reputations. You know, it was a favourite trick of the Romans and the Greeks to accuse other Greeks' men of preferring the company of young boys. You know. It was a well-known, in the Greeks' case, it was probably true, you know, but all the same, you know, that sort of thing has been going around. And sometimes the sort of, the mere suggestion of something is good enough to ruin people's careers. And who knows with Benghazi and some of the things that's going on with Hillary, whether she was guilty or not. But I mean, WikiLeaks and things like that prove that they were taking vast amounts of money from Saudi Arabia. 24 of the 26 bombers that flew the planes into the two towers were from Saudi Arabia. She's taken money from them. Is that influencing her policy in the Middle East? Well, it's very easy to put two and two together and smell a rat, isn't it? We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure that. I mean, when Michael Moore did that documentary after 9/11, that proved, and it wasn't a conspiracy theory, but proved that the Bushes and the Bin Laden family had been in business for decades and knew each other well. At that point, everything that we think we know about what's going on at top levels of society, the conspiracy theory is put in the fact that the Bin Ladens and the Bushes knew each other, the fact that Cheney and people like that had a plan very detailed military plan to invade Iraq, set out before it happened, that Iraqi passports are found on the ground the day after, the fact that relatives of the 9/11 bombers are smoking cigars in the White House 2 or 3 days later. You begin to join the dots, and you very soon smell and see and perhaps even feel a large, filthy, stinking rat. But it's still speculation. In a court of law, it would probably be enough to hang you. Who knows? I mean, it's one of those things. We're powerless. Ordinary people are powerless. What can we do about it? We're left with distrusting our politicians completely. The more you look into conspiracy theories and alternative media and alternative news, although it's good for the soul, it doesn't help you deal with ordinary people. Ordinary people get their news from the mainstream media, the 10 or 12 corporations that run it. 90% of media comes from that, whereas on the internet it comes from thousands of different sources. And some of them are completely crazy, but at least you get a balance and a more holistic point of view about what's going on. So, yeah. We're left with making judgments that aren't clinical scientific judgments, but gut instincts. And at the end of the day, everybody, I suppose that's what everybody does. We trust our guts. We trust our gut instincts on what's right or wrong. Anyway, there it is, Woody Heads. It was just a little thought about that story that caught my attention about the lady that slandered this poor old boy of making love to a pig. And I'm sure perhaps he was a gnarly, unpleasant old dude. He could have been, a real old sod. Well, a grumpy old sod that are everywhere. And the people and he's been cleared, but the people in the tiny village where he grew from were having a huge laugh at his expense. And, so we're judging people on gossip rather than facts, which is an odd thing. Anyway. See you later, Willy Heads. Have a nice afternoon and enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye for now.